Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Well, hello, my friends. Welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show. Today is Friday. It is October the 24th, and it is not a friendly Friday in so much as our buddy Steve Friend will not be joining me this morning. He has more important things afoot. He needs to go to parent-teacher conferences and find out how awesome his kids are. So, kudos to him for being a cool dad and for checking it out. And for some reason, I feel like Steve is a interesting parent-teacher conference for anyone that's going to deal with him. Today, I want to talk about a system is what it does. And there's this schizophrenic sort of double standard that continues on the political left. I don't think the right is immune to it, by the way, and so we're going to cover some of that as well. It's a couple of major stories. Number one, the people on the political left, specifically our news media, are absolutely outraged that Donald Trump is doing construction on the White House, which he said he was going to do, and he demolished a piece of the White House, which is a building, and he's going to build up another building in its place, which is kind of what Donald Trump does because he's kind of a real estate guy. And they are outraged. This historical thing has been destroyed. These are the exact same people, by the way, that cheered on the destruction of statues that have been there for a long time, that love the idea of pulling down the names on buildings, that offended them because of American history, that wanted to rechange and pull all the letters off and rename military bases across this country because even though they love history, they don't really love history, do they? So the double standard there, that sort of inability to juxtapose the two ideas that they are in obvious conflict with each other. I do still believe that if you're on the political left, if you are a hard leftist and you just believe whatever's floating your way, you must wake up every single day with a migraine. Not because it's so loud, not because you live in a city that's full of crime and sirens all night, but because your ideas that don't agree with each other are colliding at high speed inside your own brain, and one must think that it increases the blood pressure there. So, that's what I think. They're outraged about that. They're outraged that Donald Trump is doing federal immigration enforcement, and they are going to do everything they can to stop him. Now, one of the jobs of the federal government is to ensure the safety of our borders, to protect the American people from force and fraud. That's sort of why we have this government. And yet, they don't want that part funded. They're not willing to admit that that's a useful function. And at the same time, and in the same breath, they are fighting tooth and nail to do things that our government has no business doing. Providing private charity. Putting money into the pockets of corporations and products into the hands of people that didn't pay for them by using your tax dollars. So that is an integral part of what this government means to people on the left. They don't want it to do its actual job, and they do want it to do a job that it has no business getting involved in. And so what we continue to find is this push to use each government level as it accomplishes their mission. This is why progressive leftists never have a problem moving forward, because they'll use whatever tool is out there. And this is why the political right, and specifically conservatives, are always playing defense. And to be fair, they're always losing because there's not actually any real conservatives that are representing those of us that want that. Last night, I made the argument again. I will continue to make this argument that people like me, if I were a Republican, people like many of you who are listening, if you are registered are Republicans, are rhinos. You are a Republican in name only. You're not a real Republican because real Republicans vote for whatever's convenient and they cry about whatever it is that gets them donations and they approve more government and government power because the system is what it does. And what the system does is continue itself, grant itself more authorities, give itself more money. If you don't think that the government should exist for the sake of the government and you think that it is meant to serve the governed, then you're a rhino. That's something we should probably embrace. You're an opposition type person. You're a contrarian. You're a person that has principles. The real Republican Party is what the majority of the Republican Party does. That's the most logical and sensible thing to say. We can't go back and say, well, this is what it should have been and this is what it ought to have been. It's not that thing. It's the same thing as arguing about whether or not we should have federalism or whether or not the anti-federalists are right. There's a lot of historical debate. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter because that's not the world we live in right now. I keep telling people the America that we love died before we were born. We love this historical idea of America that doesn't exist, and it didn't even exist when you were born. No matter how old you are listening to this podcast, you are not old enough to remember an America that actually was what it claimed to be because that thing had already been fatally wounded long before your birth. Ain't that something? If this thing is a 120 plus year decline, you may have come online in the middle of it, and it was better than it is today, obviously. But it doesn't mean that it was ever the thing that you believed it could have been. And the idea that we're fighting for this thing that exists, by the way, every politician uses the word fighting. They cannot help themselves. They're always fighting for something. They're never just doing their damn job. They're always fighting because this is theatrical. This is WWE wrestling. That's what that fight is. It's the same fight that Triple X and The Rock used to have in the middle of the ring. I don't even know who the WWE people are anymore. So we're going to talk about all those things. We're going to talk about the FBI doing what the FBI does, which is that there was a big story about how the mafia is still in play and as much as $7 million. Do you guys know how little money that is for an FBI case at the end of the day? $7 million were scammed from people. Not just one person, by the way, many people. So this normally wouldn't even make it up to the radar. But when you are an FBI director desperate for a win, you go after that, especially on the edge of doing whatever the sand demon thing is that they do in the White House the other day. We're going to talk about probably the single scariest thing that I've seen this month. We're going to get into a discussion that Ken Klippenstein is covering, and you guys aren't going to like it. The FBI visited some anti-ICE protesters at their door. I'm going to make the argument to you that there is no difference in the FBI, and the people who work there have been purged of dissent. So they are going to do whatever they're told. And so they're going to go knock on MAGA grandma doors, and they're going to go after pro-lifers. And now that we have a new team in, they're going to go after anti-ICE protesters because none of these people take a single moment to say, what does it say in the Constitution that I swore allegiance to? And do I have a duty to protect the First Amendment? And the answer is no, they don't. They don't think they do. And I'm going to try to prove that to you. I'm going to show you historically what the FBI did in the last term, including an arrest operation that I was on and a story that one of you pointed out over on Local. So thank you for pointing out the story of Scott Payne, an FBI undercover who went after white supremacists and outlaw motorcycle gangs and so on. So we've got a lot of fun stuff to cover. Even without Steve Friend, I think we're going to have a good time here today. And we're going to get into it let's start off with a sponsor. That's how we do things here. Let's start off with a sponsor called My Patriot Supply. It may not be getting cold here in Texas, but it will be getting cold in other places around the country. And those of you who know it may be concerned about such a thing. And you say, hey, how do I keep myself warm if the power were to go out? You know, our government's not particularly efficient, and they're probably going to dick up that. I shouldn't say it that way, but the power grid is always a possibility. It's usually run under some amount or a lot of government regulation. Cold weather will be here. How do you protect yourself if everything turns off and you don't want to freeze to death? The Vesta Space Heater, it's an off-grid system that used canned heat. You can get it from mypatriotsupply.com/KYLE. It's also part of their larger winter preparedness bundle, which is really neat. It's one of the free gifts along in there. It's $140 or something like that when it's discounted out. Comes with a bunch of like canned heat, so you can actually light those things. You can cook on it. You can keep your family clean. They've got some really cool pictures of it under thermal, so you can see the amount of heat that it puts off. It amplifies the heat that you guys do. If you've ever been in a scenario where your house has lost heat in the middle of the winter, I did this in Virginia. We lost a hot water heater and our HVAC system in the same week, and they installed hardwood floors. It was legitimately 30 degrees in my bedroom, and I slept in like a parka. If you guys don't want to have to worry about that sort of thing, especially if you got little kids and you want to be able to heat them up, if everything were to go wrong, preparedness is your option. Go ahead and check out my friends over at mypatriotsupply.com/KYLE, mypatriotsupply.com/KYLE. You'll get a free gift if you guys check out that winter preparedness special. You can get canned heat and a bunch of other things, including emergency food. The weather won't last, neither will the deal. mypatriotsupply.com/KYLE. Check out the link in the show description. Let's get into today's program. Let's do it right now. Now, I told you the left is really mad about the demolition of the White House East Wing. And so when we talk about the demolition, they always act like somehow the building, the edifice itself is the standard of what it means and so on and so forth. And they're so attached to these things, except when they're not attached to them, which is always. I wanted to start off by reading something. It's used to defend a lot of the actions that have been taken, including some of the destructive things that were taken in this country. Let's keep in mind a couple of different layers of government. The first and the hopefully least important is the federal government. It turns out that most people think it's the most important, but it ought not to be. And it wasn't designed to be as such. I'm going to read the preamble to the Constitution in a second, just to remind some of us what it is that they established and why. I'm also going to read the Supremacy Clause, which should be relevant. The thing that we will always find is that the political left is going to use whatever layer of government is most effective for the thing that they want to accomplish. They're more than happy to pull the levers of power on the federal government. That's their favorite tool. It's the biggest tool, but it's not always effective and they don't always have control of it. And so if you're on the left and you're a quote unquote progressive and you always want to see the ball move forward for all the things that you care about, then you may say, well, what would be the best thing in this case? Maybe it's state government. Maybe it's local government. If you can get transgender bathrooms passed at the city level, then you'll do that. If you can get it done at the state level, then you'll do that. If you can do it at the federal level, you'll do that. If the federal government comes in and says, well, we're not going to allow, or we're not going to give you funding, or we're not going to allow our policies to encourage what you're doing, they will immediately suddenly be the hugest proponents of states' rights that you've ever seen. Because it's not about standards. It's about moving the ball forward. All of this reminds me of a discussion that I've had with Alex Jones, probably about 5 or 6 times off air. And many of you who listen to him have heard him say it on air, the discussion about this thing called the PODESTA plan. And I was kind of skeptical about the idea of the PODESTA plan. Essentially, the PODESTA plan is a false flag operation whereby people on the political left are going to push forward an agenda in direct opposition to Donald Trump's moves, whatever the federal government's moves are, while Donald Trump is president and, the Republicans have the House and the Senate. They're going to confront some sort of federal government group, whether it be the National Guard, whether it be ICE, whether it be FBI, doesn't really matter. And when that happens, they will have an inciting incident that rallies support and causes people to be outraged and dangerous in the streets. Now, they almost got this kind of thing done in 2020. They definitely laid the groundwork and they showed people how it would work. Then you move forward into 2021. They didn't have to implement this stuff. They actually managed to take control of a chunk of the government. And so you ended up seeing rests of the MAGA types and the pro-lifers and all the things. But none of these things had to do specifically with the political inclinations of that group of government. What it had to do is that the people at the top were giving orders and people were following those orders. And nobody questions because nobody seems to know what the hell it is that they swore allegiance to. And overwhelmingly, we have a hard time divorcing our political instincts, all of us do this, from what it is that those principles say we should do. The PODESTA plan that I am concerned about right now is that you are seeing a lot of folks that are not paid by George Soros. They are not funded by billionaires. Their signs were created in their house because they are useful idiots. They are fools who are empty vessels that are willing to hear something that emotionally resonates with them, and they have zero principles that guide it. So if we're in favor of the federal government today, no problem. That's what we want. And if we are not, also no problem. We hate the federal government today because the federal government is not controlled by us. And there is zero conflict in their brain. There is zero stop signs that says, hey, 15 seconds ago, didn't we think the opposite? Weren't we pro-government? Didn't we want to fund the government? You want to fund the government that does SNAP, but you don't want to fund the government that does ICE, but they're the same government. And they don't see a conflict in that. And there's a reason why. Let's start with this preamble to the Constitution. Let's start with the preamble, and then I'll also give you the Supremacy Clause. The preamble states, we the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. It's the preamble. They used to make people memorize this. And by people, I mean children. We used to indoctrinate our youth so that they would understand that this is the purpose of the federal government. And it's actually pretty narrow in its scope. To form a more perfect union is an ideal. It sets forth a mission or a goal or like a mission statement of any company. This is what we strive for. But the real keys here are to establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense. All of these things are about force and fraud, right? Those are the things that would come and take away your sense of justice, your ability to enjoy domestic tranquility, the common defense, that's your national military option. Promote the general welfare. The left loves to hone in on the concept of the general welfare because they capitalize the W whenever we read it. And so therefore, we are supposed to believe that welfare in the 1770s and the 1780s, 1787, 1789, that somehow was supposed to mean the same thing as the post-FDR word welfare? Is that what we're supposed to believe? That welfare had the same meaning? It just meant your general well-being. The general welfare, not the specific government program of welfare, although they love that. And then to ensure the blessings of liberty. What is liberty? It's freedom. It's the ability to make decisions on your own, with your own money, with your own time, with your own talents. How your family is raised, which is also brought up. Our posterity, those are our children. Those are those that come after us. And they do ordain and establish this Constitution. So that was the very simple, easy layout that our founders gave you the mission statement of what this federal government was supposed to be. And then allow me to give you the Supremacy Clause, which is going to govern when state law and federal law come in conflict with. Now, we have another piece of that as well that I'm not gonna forget, because there are plenty of things. We just got a narrow scope of what our federal government is supposed to do. This is Supremacy Clause comes from Clause 2 of Article 6 of the U.S. Constitution. And it states as follows. It's on the screen. This Constitution and the laws of the United States, which shall be made in pursuance thereof, and all treaties made or which shall be made under the authority of the United States shall be the supreme law of the land, and the judges in every state shall be bound thereby. Anything in the Constitution or laws of any state to the contrary, notwithstanding. Okay? You cannot make a state law that will take over the authority or the powers that are given in the Constitution. But the Constitution is narrow in scope, which is what the preamble sort of laid out for us. And they even solidified that in the 10th Amendment. The 10th Amendment actually explicitly states those things. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, so things that are not addressed, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. It is, and then the 9th says that this is not an exhaustive list. Our Constitution is narrow in scope. It has high specificity, and the areas which it is authorized to act, it is the supreme law of the land. And there are certain things which we see here. Ensure domestic tranquility and provide for the common defense, promoting general welfare. Those things are fairly explicit, and they actually lay out even more specifically how that gets done. Our friends on the left do not pay attention to these things because whatever is most convenient for them is the thing that they are going to attempt to use. They will pull on any lever that gives them power, and any heartstring, any feelings are more important than the actual factual writings that were done at that time. And the White House is demolishing the East Wing. God forbid. Satellite images show this. So, are you outraged? ABC is reporting on this one. There's new images that appeared on Thursday that show the entire White House East Wing has been demolished to make way for the president's $300 million ballroom. I don't know why the number even matters. It's a ballroom. It's being privately funded by donors and by the president. What a nice service he's doing. I honestly could not care less about government buildings. But this is going to be an outrage because we are destroying things like tradition. This is a group that loves tradition so much that they want to change the definitions of men and women in 2025 after thousands of years of human history. By satellite images from Planet Labs PBC show that the East Wing had been reduced to rubble. This is the people's house, said a woman who is a correspondent for ABC News. This is the people's house. Why not inform the public of that change? And when it was decided that the East Wing would have to be demolished, they're outraged. They're asking the important questions that everyone must know. With any construction project, some changes happen. We have to inform all of you, and we've been keeping you apprised of the project. We'll show you the renderings. That's what Karen Levitt said. I could not care less. I could not care less about the White House demolishing a piece of government building. How many of you get a chance to run through the quote-unquote people's house? Have any of you been able to go anywhere in the White House? Is it your house? Because I don't think it is. I don't think that's what that building is to anyone. You get to see it from the outside. I have too. But your ability to go walk around or demand things, or the fact that most people will never know what happened in that part of the wing, they will never see it except from camera footage. And it'll affect their lives absolutely zero. But you're going to see outrage on it. Because what else can we do except farm this outrage? This is not exclusive to the political left, which that was an ABC story, so we know where it comes from. The right is now doing the same thing. And some of my favorite people, I actually really like Harmeet Dillon, the public persona that she presents. Her private persona is a little less warm than what you see on camera. But she's sharp, and she seems to have similar principles. Not real crazy about doing a Diwali series of videos walking around, but whatever. She's writing this. This is a tweet that I've got on the screen right now. And this has to do with the unveiling of Arctic frost, with the Republicans are now trying to make some hay out of it. The problem is the Republicans have ignored a very simple rule that I started this program off with, which is that a system is what it does. A system is what it does. There's a biblical principle there. You will know them by their fruits. Similar kind of idea. How will you know what kind of tree it is? Because an apple tree produces apples. And a government tree with a lot of power produces government power and overreach. That's what it does. It doesn't matter how much oversight you have if you've given them leeway to do things legally. Harmeet Dillon wrote as follows. All of the phonies clutching their pearls about the sanctity of the Justice Department prior to this administration can sit down and shut up now that the sheer constitutional carnage wrought by the Biden DOJ has been exposed. It's hard to believe that Merrick Garland was almost on the Supreme Court of the United States. And she's quoting Chuck Grassley, who's 91,000 years old. And Chuck Grassley wrote with his bony knuckles, typing in probably just the index knuckle, I assume, as he tweeted this out, or some staffer who was pretending to be Chuck Grassley did the same thing, stated as follows. I just received this document from the DOJ, proof that Biden Attorney General Merrick Garland plus Deputy Attorney General Lisa Monaco plus FBI Durr, Chris Wray all personally approved, all caps, opening Arctic frost. This investigation unleashed unchecked government power, the highest levels. My oversight will continue. He loves to sign off his stuff now with my oversight will continue, by the way. I don't know why. My question to him was as follows. What are you going to do legislatively to correct this, Chuck Grassley, guy who is in the Senate since before any of us were born? What are you going to do? This is a legislative problem. See, the funny thing about it is that quote unquote constitutional carnage was legally authorized under the way that the DOJ and the FBI actually work. I was there when they made it happen. Chuck Grassley was one of the witnesses to the Constitution being signed. I think that's what happens when you're 91,000 years old. He's older than Biden, who everybody was crying about being a human Roomba. He's being led around by his staffers. This grosses me out at a really high level. To pretend that you have outrage and to say the following, which, by the way, about 20 of his tweets in the last couple of days have said this. My oversight will continue. Right, but your reaction to bad behavior will not happen. That was the action. If you guys want to know, what will Republicans do? The joke is it'll be sternly written letters and hearings. We're not even getting those anymore, people. What we're getting is tweet for effect. For those of you that were in the military, they're not firing for a warning. They're not firing blanks. They're firing for effect. They are trying to get the action on target. This is the action. The action is, are you also outraged with, I am so mad. My heart rate is now 71 beats per minute. He's truly upset about this. That's why he knuckle tapped that thing out. This was a legal action by our DOJ. This was a legal action authorized by the Attorney General, by Lisa Monaco, etc. that system will continue to do what the system does. It bears those fruits. Now, it may turn around and go after people on the other side of the aisle. And as soon as the ring of power is handed over, it will go back to exactly what it did before. Because the ring of power cannot be wielded by men. You've given men, imperfect men, men who have all kinds of biases, who have all kinds of jealousies and viciousness and personal issues. And they've been able to wield this. And they're not supposed to wield this. And it is outside the mission set. They're trying to influence political policy. They work for the executive, so they're going to do the work of the executive. Josh Hawley is acting as though he's saying things that are not even true, but he's allowed to say this. He claims that these devices that they had that were being checked for toll records, which means that they were finding what were the ingoing and outgoing calls and who were they going to. No content. Content is what we typically talk about when we say the word wiretap. When you think of a wiretap, that means that you're talking on the phone to fill in the blank person, and I, as an FBI agent on the other end, or a DEA agent or FBI agent of the government, is listening in. I'm getting the same conversation, both sides of it. That is not what happened in Arctic Frost. It doesn't make it any less atrocious. The thing that is atrocious about Arctic Frost is that the authority existed within the federal government to do it. And these people are acting like they don't know better. What they're actually doing is just sending fundraisers. Can you chip in $5 as we fight? Okay. In the same way that we see WWE. Can we fight against these evil Democrats who use the government poorly so that we can use the government poorly? More on that in a second. Hold that thought. Here's Josh Hawley making claims that are not true and doing theater and outrage. He's a great actor. He's relatively handsome. He's well-spoken. He's got a great voice. His vocabulary is polished, and the things he says are bullshit. Enjoy.
The records that they sought to track and trace and tap, the devices that they sought, are in the possession of senators pursuant to their constitutional duties. 2 U.S.C. Section 6628A specifically says that those records do not become the possession of cell phone companies. They don't become the possession of Verizon or AT&T or whomever. They are retained by the senator's office. Why? Because these devices are used pursuant to the speech and debate responsibilities of senators. Yet the Justice Department did not inform senators, did not seek from our offices these records. They went instead ex parte to the telephone companies, got the records apparently, again, with no criminal predicate that we know about, no process whatsoever. It is a grotesque violation of statutory law and also the separation of powers, particularly the speech and debate clause. Here you have an executive branch directly spying on members of the legislative branch while they are performing their constitutional duties. Let me just ask you, Mr. David, does this sound like something we want to normalize? I mean, is this something you'd like to see the current Justice Department doing on a regular basis? I mean, should they be tracking the cell phone records of everybody down here on the left side of the dais? Would that be a good thing for the country?
Clearly no, Senator.
Clearly no. Clearly no. I can't tell you what an outrage I think this is. And so
I'm so outraged. I'm so outraged. I did a really great job. My hair looks fantastic. My suit is on point. I'm wearing a purple tie right down the middle. And I am outraged. I am outraged that they went to a court ex parte. I said words in Latin. Yeah. I'm so outraged that I just ignored the fact that there was a lawful subpoena and that the authority to do this rests inside the executive and the investigative capabilities. There wasn't even a criminal predicate. Those are big words. Okay, Josh Hawley. There was no criminal predicate. Have you ever heard of a guy named Kyle Seraphin who came out in September of 2022 and told you the FBI is an intelligence agency? Are you currently shocked right now? Your office has done investigations on things that I have said, including abuse of the FBI director's jet. Are we going to talk about it today? Kash Patel's doing the same thing that Chris Wray did. Do you guys have any principles? I'm the rhino. You're the real Republican. You want to turn on SNAP benefits for people. You want to make sure that we fund our government. The same government that, quote unquote, spied on you, despite the fact that your definition of spying is just whatever's politically convenient for you. Brother, you're all off the map here. It's an intelligence agency. What did you think they did? You didn't recapture it, and you haven't recaptured it. All we've seen is that all the people that put their hand up and said, by the way, I'm not going to do that. That's a violation of the First Amendment. They either retired or they were fired. And one of them's sitting here right now. This isn't about me. This is about all of us. When I sat down with Dan Bongino, regardless of my differences with him, at this point, I said something obviously true. 50, 60% of the FBI's mission has nothing to do with criminality. It has to do with intelligence investigations. They were looking at the quote unquote threat. And the threat was election interference. The threat was the possible subversion by the executive doing anything. There's no definition in the criminal code of what a threat looks like. That is an authority granted because you created an intelligence agency after 9/11 and you guys have let it get completely out of control. The system is what it does. And what it does is it feeds itself. It looks for a mission, it goes out there, and it serves the purposes of making sure that it has work to do. In the military, sometimes they call it make work. Make work is work that you make because you don't have real work to do. If you don't have a mission, you put people to work. There's always a floor to scrub. There's always a parking lot to sweep. There's always a window to wash. There's always a plaque to shine. Go do work, lest you leave a bunch of people wondering what to do. You left the FBI wondering what to do with itself because it ran out of the actual mission it had, and it went and found work, and some of that work were senators and members of the House and people who were pro-life Catholics and fathers of 9 children. That's what they did. They went and found work. If they couldn't find neo-Nazis, they would make neo-Nazis. They called them radical traditionalist Catholics, people who like Latin Mass and think that Vatican II was a real problem. They found work, folks. It's the #1 rule of CQB that teaches you to be a good operator in a tactical, kinetic environment. Find work, make yourself useful. That means find something to do. The FBI is good at it, it turns out. Whatever's easiest and whatever fits that mission. And it fit into the mission. The system is what it does. The fruits of it are things like Arctic frosts. They're things like investigating a former president who's now the sitting president of the United States. And all of you think that you're going to wield that ring of power and you're going to keep it. It's going to turn on you the second it needs to, because the system is what it does. And what it does is it finds work. And that work is whatever's most convenient for itself. It covers for a freaking pipe bomb. It's the cover-up operation. The FBI is currently the cover-up, mop-up operation, and they are deeply invested in it. How does it explain years of what it did under the Biden administration and not have a solution today? Why was that not the first thing that happened? Because the system is what it did. What it did was help the cover up. You can't delegitimize it. There's, as Steve Friend likes to point out, there is no obvious connection that what happened in the J6 pipe bombs had anything to do with the riots that happened at the Capitol, at least not yet. And in order to preserve that narrative that the system is not completely illegitimate, it drew connections in those two things in all of the criminal complaints used to go after J6ers. Do you know that? The FBI argued that there were terroristic activities on that day and therefore terroristic enhancements needed to be used. The minute that you expose that it was complete BS, then you have to also say that all 5,000 plus agents and all of the analytical work that was done and all the prosecutors and all the people at DOJ that were involved in going after those J6ers were doing illegitimate work. You delegitimize the whole structure. They can't do that. The system is what it does. And the best thing that it does is protect itself, find work for itself, and defend its actions. And the thing that our Congress people do, rather than making laws or cutting out the regulatory problems or stopping these authorities by actually reducing the scope of federal law enforcement and making sure that it's not intelligence, no. They do hearings and they're outraged. And they ask questions and they write letters. And they do freaking nothing. But could you chip in $5, please, to our campaign? We'd really love it if you would chip in $5. We need your money to continue this fight. Only by the grace of God and your money, financially, are we going to be able to continue doing the thing that you hope we would do. We're not going to actually do it, but we are going to talk about doing it. So there you go. You guys got any trust and faith in government? Not me. That's why I keep my phone in a freaking Faraday bag, especially when we're doing the show. How do you like that segue? My friends over at Silent are awesome. We really like their products. I've got their stuff set up for any of the riot coverage that we may do in the future, and I expect we will. The website is slnt.com/KYLE. They make outstanding products that actually work. That's not the case for things in government. In fact, when the government tried to buy stuff that was cheap and from Chinesium, they did not work. Silent stuff does, and I've tested it myself. I actually say that very honestly. I'm really, really picky about the sponsors that I'll get behind. Government agencies, big tech, corporate data brokers, cyber criminals, take your pick. They're all fighting for a piece of your digital footprint. They do not ask. They just take it. They get a subpoena, and they get it lawfully. If you want to take some of your, activity off grid, put it in a bag. Make sure there's no signal tracking. The Silent Faraday products will block cellular, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, GPS, RFID, satellite. You take your pick. If it's a signal that goes out over the airwaves, it will be blocked. It's the same tech that special operations use worldwide. FBI counterintelligence agents use, people who are handling sources left and right. Journalists, you take your pick. If you want to block your signals, avoid surveillance, and secure your comms, wherever your mission leads you, check out Silent. It's not for everybody, but it actually has an application for probably every single person that's listening here, including just having a peace and quiet and some silence while you and your family are trying to have a meal together without the interference from all the ugly things that happen in the world. Drop your phone in a Silent Faraday sleeve. You're off grid. It goes silent. You're invisible. slnt.com/KYLE, silent.com/Kyle. Save 15%. Make sure you use my name at checkout so you guys save a couple bucks. They are not the cheapest products, but they are very well made and they do the job. And I really, really like their design, including that backpack that you're seeing on the screen. It's outstanding. It's quite good. Okay. Let's continue onward. The federal government is shut down. How are we all alive? How is this podcast going out? How is the electricity on? How does the water continue to function? Why the United States government has shut down? And what happens now? Let's read some fun stories because, again, the left is going to make it a big deal. The CBS News says that the Senate failed to advance a GOP bill to pay essential workers during the shutdown. Even the essential workers won't get paid. Remember, because the essential workers include things like law enforcement and the military. And the left doesn't like that part of it. When they're not in control of it and it's not doing the thing that they want, they're totally fine with funding CBP and Border Patrol as long as CBP and Border Patrol are the welcoming party for illegal aliens who will become eventual voters for their system. What they do not like is funding it when it's rounding up the people that have broken federal laws and they're sending them out of this country. God forbid, we cannot do this. So, very interesting. The Senate failed to advance a GOP-backed measure that would pay federal employees, members of the military, and contractors who continue to work during the shutdown. The bill known as the Shutdown Fairness Act was introduced by Ron Johnson of Wisconsin. It needed Democrat support to reach the 60 votes to advance, and it fell well short of the tally at a 54-45. One person abstained. 3 Democrats crossed the aisle: John Fetterman, John Ossoff, and Raphael Warnock. At least Warnock and Ossoff. The thing is all of this stuff is very well choreographed. If you don't realize, certain people will cross the aisle to show, hey, we're bipartisan. I voted with Republicans, so I could make this claim when I go out there and try to woo Republican voters to come over to my side. I'm working on your behalf, and I don't care about party lines. Right? As long as I know that enough of my colleagues are not going to cross over. They'll cross over another time when I stand firm. I stood firm against this thing. When the Republicans tried to take our things, other people caved, but not me. So they always get to make the same claim. It's so obvious the minute you see it that you can no longer look at any of these people seriously. You can no longer take them seriously, not even for a minute. The Senate adjourned at 3 p.m. They said that they would give it another shot another time. They didn't take a 13th vote. Let's see. I think I've got some footage of that. Yeah. Here's Mike Lee talking about, well, we're not going to fund the government again. We're going to keep pretending. We're winning, by the way. As long as they do this, we're all winning. And when they run out of funding and people start thinking like, hey, I don't think I can do this job indefinitely, let them step into the shoes of my friend Garrett O'Boyle, who went 1,100 days without a paycheck. I went 14 months on unpaid federal suspension. I had to sell my house. I had to leave what I knew. I had to take my kids away from their family and their friends. So be it. Nobody guarantees you anything. Maybe you should stop trusting in the federal government, which has a very limited scope that we covered earlier. Here's Mike Lee talking about it again. I think I played this yesterday as well.
All right, for the 12th consecutive time, Democrats have just voted down a resolution to keep the government funded. Keep it funded even at the same levels that Democrats, a matter of months ago, found entirely acceptable. For whatever reason, they want this thing shut down. Big test now will be tomorrow to see whether they vote for Senator Johnson's bill, a great bill, the Shutdown Fairness Act, to make sure that we pay those federal workers who are currently required to work. I don't know how they vote against that. They shouldn't vote against it. We'll see.
Yeah, and they voted against it. Like I said, that's great. So based. Way to go, Mike Lee. We just want to pay these federal workers. How about you start removing things? How about you start truncating, cutting off? How about you start wielding the machete or that, what was the thing that we saw? There was this like image. I swear we had an image of getting rid of government inefficiency. There it is. It was the Doge chainsaw. Do you remember? And then you guys all realized that we were going to cut off all the funding to all your favorite pork products. And then you went like, maybe not that. Maybe not my district. Maybe not the thing that would actually cause people who are working and getting money for things that we don't need, that the American taxpayer has to fund with or without their own permission. Maybe not that project. That would affect my district. If you found out in the last, what are we on, day 24? If you found out in the last 24 days that your government has deemed you to be not an essential worker and that you are not getting paid and you are not being asked to work and your job is not relevant to the continuation of what our government does, shouldn't you be finding another job? You've been tipped off. I'll say it every day. It's Friday, October 24th, 24 days into you recognizing that your job is not important to the people that pay you for your job. Any day now. Does that mean that it's going to go well for everybody? No. The government could tip us into a recession, people. Experts are weighing in. My favorite is when they find an expert. This is also from ABC News. The United States economy remains largely unscathed by the government shutdown, but the nation could risk economic peril if the impasse deepens into a long-term standoff. Some economists told ABC News. Roughly 750,000 furloughed government employees, read that as people whose jobs are not essential to the work of the federal government, already feel crimped by the shutdown as they suffer missed paychecks and strained budgets. Those direct effects will grow dramatically on November 1st, when millions of low-income Americans are set to lose their access to critical food assistance. It's not clear, I'm going to just go off script here, it's not clear why the federal government, the single largest tool in the belt, is being used to solve the problem of the single smallest entity in the United States, the individual or the personal family. Why would we use the largest entity, the furthest thing from you, to solve your hunger problem or your income issues when it comes to affordability? Oh, because we'll use whatever tool we can to usher in a failing system. That's why. Because we do not care about principle. We do not care about the federal government or what its actual charter or mission is. And we should know the reason the federal government sucks, why it's awful, why we don't like it, if you are a quote-unquote rhino like me. If you're a person who is a conservative and thinks that small government is the answer, what do we know? We know that the system is what it does. And what it does is take all the money, do some inefficient sort of shuffling, and then hand it out in a least efficient way possible with the least amount of control that any of us have over it. The prolonged shutdown, lasting several months, may force furloughed employees to exhaust savings. Welcome to my world. I've been there. It sucked. Yeah. Garrett O'Boyle was there too. While sapping wider government consumer strength as a swath of people go without key government support. Why is government support key to your survival plan? The entire purpose of the government is to create space for you to thrive, not to make sure that you thrive. The purpose of the government has nothing to do with keeping you alive or supporting you. All it's supposed to do is ward off the threats that would come in and try to stop you from surviving. But it's not a guarantee that you're going to be okay. Ben Shapiro used to talk about this all the time. The brilliance of the American experiment was that it created space for you to prosper, but it guaranteed nothing. And many people for the last 200 plus 50 years of this country died trying. And that's what was expected. The minute that we started making a safety net and we started mandating charity in opposition to the founder of this country, one of the founders, James Madison, the architect of our Constitution, the father of it, one of the guys who said that there is no legislative duty to provide charity. Our government has no business doing such a thing. The minute that we made that part of the government's mission, we really saddled ourselves to something that we ought not to. And the minute that we died was when we opened up the gates and said, anybody can come here. And by the way, you also can access this safety net that you have no business to have, including when you got here illegally. And so we're currently seeing this crying effect nonstop. And they're going to talk about it going into a recession. The government is shut down. What happens next? God forbid. All of these people are so upset. Here's Debbie Wasserman, Ramen Noodle Schultz. Once you see it, you cannot unsee it. She's looking very sad. She's making a truly inarticulate argument for healthcare, which is not the government's business. It has nothing to do with the government's priorities. We just read them. Healthcare has nothing to do with general welfare. Nothing. Nor does it have to do with the common defense. Let's go back to the document. Does it establish justice? No. Does it ensure domestic tranquility? No. Does it provide common defense? No. Does it promote general well-being? I don't know. That doesn't really make any sense to me. You're trying to squeeze something in that didn't even exist back then. So no. Does it secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our children? No, it does not. Here's a congresswoman inarticulately arguing something that I think is completely ridiculous. And by the way, she can't even get her own argument right. Watch how many times she falls all over it. Why someone decided to put this video out is beyond me. She looks like she's having a stroke too. Half of her face is kind of weird and droopy. She's very upset the government is shut down, obviously. She's doing the, maybe she's doing the sackcloth and the ashes in the mourning face. Maybe she has a rent garment somewhere that we can't see on camera. Here we go.
House Republicans are refusing to even come to work. I mean, how do you resolve a problem? How do you come to a compromise if one side isn't even coming to work? I mean, they're on vacation. They've abandoned their post. And we have to stop. They have to stop the my way or the highway politics that they've been engaging in, because we have millions of people who are dramatically going to be impacted if we don't resolve this healthcare crisis.
We have to stop. They have to stop. Someone has to stop. It's not clear to me what it is that I'm reading. I'm just saying words. Is that Bell's palsy? Is that what that is? Should I put it back on the screen here for a second? What is it that causes this face thing?
House Republicans are refusing to even come to work. I mean, how do you resolve a problem? How do you come to a compromise if one side isn't even coming to work? I mean, they're on vacation. They've abandoned their post. And we have to stop. They have to stop the...
We have to stop. They have to stop. My way or the highway. We're the ones that actually don't want to fund this government, but they don't want to fund this government. We won't sign off on the thing that we previously signed off on, but they won't sign off on it. I mean, I just don't care. Keep it up, please. Here's Tim Burchett. I've met him in person. He seems like a nice man. He also seems like he's full of crap too. Every single time I see him interview more and more, he just looks like he wants to be a social media star. I guess that's what he's getting. The audio is a little bit goofy. It sounds like it's in a tunnel. It's not my fault. I think it's double tracked on this. That's on his end. So be it. Here he is talking about folks want to know about the Schumer shutdown. Folks want to know about that Schumer shutdown that we're calling it. We branded it a Schumer shutdown. Own it, you clowns. You guys want to be small government? You want to claim you're from Tennessee? You want to go out there and be conservative? Be freaking conservative. Be like, yeah, the government is shut down and we're not going to open it until we cut a ton of it. And the longer we can let the clock run out, the happier we'll be. There's a Schumer shutdown. Folks want to know about it.
Hey everybody, Tim Burchett. A lot of folks are talking about what's going on with the Schumer shutdown, and SNAP benefits are going to be cut if we don't do something. Well, here's the truth on that. SNAP, of course, is the new term for food stamps. There's been some new rules put in place that folks need to try to get a job. Things like that are kind of offensive to the left. And a lot of people are unhappy about that. But the truth is, the reason those benefits are not going to go through is because every Democrat except one in the House voted to shut the government down. And then in the Senate, they've had 12 votes. And every time the Democrats have voted to shut the government down, they keep saying, well, the Republicans have the majority. But they know the truth is, even though they have the majority, you have to have 60 votes. Republicans have 53. So, and you've got two or three Democrats that have switched over and that are voting to open the government.
Is he out of breath just walking on leaves or whatever it is he's doing too? Again, yet another argument. The people that are in our government are too old. I don't even know how old he is. I should probably look it up. That's something I probably should know. Hold on. We'll look at it right now. Tim Burchett. There it is. Age. How old do you think he is, folks? Not on here. One sec. We'll get it. 61 years old. Right on the edge there, brother. 4 more years and you should be out. That won't be the case. He'll stick around. He's thinking that a woman named Marsha Blackburn, who's like 78 years old, should be the governor in his state. So go figure. All right, let's take a quick break over there. We'll talk about my friends over at Undertagged. You guys know about this. The best undies that I own. I actually save these undies for my favorite days. I'm not kidding. Undertack.com is the website. Use the code KyleWin right now. It's going to save you 10%. It's going to put you in a chance to win $100,000 in gold. That'd be pretty cool. But only if you act before December the 2nd. So that's when this promotion goes. Our friends at Undertack, the world's most comfortable underwear, have partnered up with a group called Shared Sweeps. They're going to give you a shot at some life-changing money, real gold, worth $100,000. It's kind of a cool promo. I don't hate it. You save some money on cool gear. You may win something. You can earn a sweepstakes entry for every single purchase you make. Some will give you 2x, some will give you 3x. There are some that will give you 5x the entries. You can stack up to 75 freaking 100 entries into this drawing. But remember, the more you shop, the better your odds are. Use the code KyleWin, KYLEWIN at checkout. You'll score 10% off instantly. Plus, you'll get your entries added into the sweepstakes. Every purchase today saves you money, locks in your chance at $100,000 in gold. You're not just chasing a gold prize. You're upgrading your gear to perform. We're talking about Undertack boxers. They've got hoodies. They've got American-made socks. I went running in them the other day. They're super nice. They've got all kinds of other stuff out there. Check it out. This giveaway ends on December the 2nd. Don't miss out. Stock up now if you guys want to get premium gear, plus stack entries for $100,000 in gold. That's your chance. Undertack.com. There are some rules for the sweepstakes that you probably saw on the screen. They're also in the show notes. The link is in the show description as well, so you guys can check them out. I do really like their undies. They're the only undies that I've added to my collection, despite people trying. My mother bought me undies for some reason. I'm 43 years old and my mom still buys me underwear. And I won't wear them, but I do wear the Undertack ones. They're super comfy. So check them out. Definitely if you guys are looking on the list. Let's talk about the real problems in this country. NBA gambling stuff. NBA gambling. Yeah, it's a nightmare for the league. This is their 8 men out, I guess. This is the story. Apparently, this is what our FBI does in addition to spying on, quote unquote, spying on our political officials and going out there and checking in on the First Amendment protected activities of other people. There is a nightmare gambling scandal. Hornets guard Terry Rozier. I don't know who that guy is. I don't know anything about sports ball, especially NBA. It's the least sports ball that I'm aware of, folks. They were indicted in part of an investigation into insider sports betting, a separate investigation of what law enforcement described as a mafia-rigged poker game. Also led to charges for the Trailblazers coach, a guy named Chauncey Billups. Another person I don't know. There's his name, face on the screen. These people don't matter to me whatsoever. The amount of money we're talking about is a pittance. It's silly. People have always alleged this sort of thing. Are you telling me that people who play a game for money and have the ability to make money based on the outcome of that game, even though they're not supposed to, might actually accept money to change the outcome of that game when there's so many games that if it does change one or two outcomes on one or two games, it doesn't affect their season? Holy moly, that can't be the case, is it? The arrest, including Hall of Famer and Portland head coach Chauncey Billups, altered the tenor of the week's conversation around the NBA. The new season's only just started 2 days earlier. The mood, front office executive said, went from fanfare to fear. Did it? I didn't even know. Most of you didn't care either. Kash Patel went to go make a big deal out of it. Here he is on C-SPAN giving whatever this is that he does. This was a multi-year investigation, as far as I could understand. I think it started in 2019. And so this began long before Kash Patel ever was even a thought in the mind of the FBI, because this is what the FBI does. They do long-term investigations. And when you need a win, cash in that chip. Here he is, cashing that chip.
Good morning. Today we are here in New York to announce a historic arrest across a wide sweeping.
Wait, why is he out of breath? I understand why Tim Burchett was out of breath. He's 61 and he's walking. Kash Patel is standing at a podium, not wearing a suit like an FBI director. He's wearing an FBI raid jacket as though he just got in from arresting people, custom fitted for himself with patches for probably New York field office on it. Why is he out of breath?
Good morning. Today we are here in New York to announce a historic arrest across a wide sweeping criminal enterprise that envelops both the NBA and La Casa Nostra. The men and women up here standing with me represent a small portion of the leadership team that brought profound justice in an era that needed it more than any. I'll just highlight some of the details in the case and the FBI work, and then you'll hear from the others. But as you now know, individuals such as Chauncey Billups, Damon Jones, and Terry Rozier were taken into custody today, former, current NBA players and coaches. What you don't know is that this is an illegal gambling operation and sports rigging operation that spanned the course of years. The FBI led a coordinated takedown across 11 states to arrest over 30 individuals today responsible for this case, which is very much ongoing. Not only did we crack into the fraud that these perpetrators committed on the grand stage of the NBA, but we also entered and executed a system of justice against La Casa Nostra to include the Bonanno, Gambino, Genovese, and Lucchese crime families. And you'll hear more about those details today. The charges and the arrests that were taken down across this country range from wire fraud, money laundering, extortion, robbery, illegal gambling. This FBI will leave no room for any perpetrator of crime across this country. You hear a lot about our work of defending the homeland and crushing violent crime. Well, this work is also representative of a colossal portion of the FBI's mandate to keep America safe and to keep our entertainment industry fair and secure.
That's what I'm most worried about, guys. I got to tell you, when I start thinking, like, what is the purpose of the FBI if not to keep our entertainment system fair? I need to make sure that people that are doing degenerate sports gambling don't have an unfair thing going on. You know, people who basically don't know how to do math. Are there, like, what's going on here? You know what I didn't hear, though? And I really am going to need this from him. What I didn't hear was some praise of Donald Trump. Is there any knob slobbery to be had? Could there be some knob slobbery? I hope so. I'd hate to see an opportunity to stand in front of a microphone in a national way and not do knob slobbery of Donald Trump. Seemed like something was missing. I didn't get enough sniffs either. I only heard like 3 sniffs on there. This is what the FBI is really... Look, if you're going after La Cosa Nostra, knock yourself out. By the way, it's called transnational organized crime, or Talk West. That's what we do in the FBI, theoretically. They used to do that. Then they claimed that the mob was dead. Apparently the mob is back. Why is the mob back? Oh, because the FBI let off the gas. Maybe they weren't allowed to go after it. Fine, good. Do that. To act like this is some sort of like heroic big deal and that sports gambling might actually have some fraud involved in it, I don't know. Is that really the big priority? Is that the big win? Let's do some knob slobbery because I feel like we missed out on that opportunity. And you should never miss out on an opportunity to tell your boss how awesome he is because of how awesome you are.
The NYPD, HSI, and teams of law enforcement officials from around the country made this day possible. It takes a team to bring this kind of justice, sweeping justice, into the halls of the United States courtrooms, where our brave United States attorney has led this prosecution. It takes courageous prosecutors to stand before you and say, we will not allow this kind of illicit activity to happen, not only at the national sporting level, but also where it hides in La Casa Nostra. And when these two collided together, they perpetrated a fraud that is historic in terms of not just money, but the scheme and the deceit that they utilize to steal and swindle people for money, to include crypto fraud.
You missed it, man. There was an opportunity. What about knob slobbery? Maybe you'll get another shot when you go on Fox for like a real interview. You could go and do that. So we'll go ahead and do that. I'm really disappointed. I saw so little of it. And Donald Trump is also disappointed. He takes note when you don't do the right thing, when you don't say what needs to be done. We're going to talk about what it is. The system is what it does. We're going to talk about exactly where this problem continues to go on. This is what our FBI is doing. Great. What else are they doing? They're also doing the thing that we don't want. They're going after that First Amendment. I don't think it's terrible, by the way, that they went and arrested people. I think it was a little bit silly that they drove out and like knocked down like some horse betting places the other day. And so they're doing this sort of like every single moment we're going to try to grab as much glory as possible. I've never seen an FBI director as much as we've seen Kash Patel in the 8 months that he's been doing it. Never. Neither of you, by the way. You've never seen that much of him. Let's take a quick break over here to the folks at Spotify. If you're listening on Spotify or one of the audio platforms, you may hear an audio ad right here. You should find us at KyleSerafinshow.com. That's how you do it. You can also find us over on Locals. Last night we had a nice call-in show. It was very uplifting. KyleSerafin.com is how you guys join the Locals program if you guys want to be part of it. And our next story is actually coming from one of our friends on Locals. If you are watching on the videos, if you're watching YouTube, if you're watching Rumble, if you're watching X, give us a like. Make sure you shared it with somebody that you love. Maybe subscribe. That'd be cool. We'd like to see that. I would like to see that. Should we do a little bit of a different story? This is fun. This is the old... Remember he said this FBI and that FBI, the old FBI and this FBI, and there's always this differentiation. It's the same FBI. This is a story that one of you brought to my attention, a guy named Scott Payne. I don't know anything about Scott Payne. He's probably an okay dude. He did a bunch of stories, though, of late. How I went undercover to expose America's Nazis. Now, I do have a little bit of a problem because this is what the FBI has done since the 90s. Are you allowed to be a Nazi in America? Yeah, you are. You actually are. Are you allowed to be a white supremacist in America? Can you believe in the superiority of one race over another race? Yeah, you can. Are you allowed to be an a-hole and have like opinions that we do not like in America? It turns out you are. Are you allowed to associate with people who have those beliefs? Yeah, you can. Can you have all kinds of crappy ideas that are really not suitable for maybe a polite and Christian society? It turns out that you are allowed to do that. Scott Payne with Michelle Shepard. This article is written under The Walrus. It's Canada's Conversations. They used the word accelerationists, which you guys had not heard. I was accused of being an accelerationist the other day. And I don't know if that person was in the white supremacy camp or not online, but the basic idea is that you are looking to hasten the demise. They use it as a very negative. It's a pejorative, generally speaking, when the law enforcement talks about it. We're talking about people that want to hasten the demise so that we can get to whatever the next iteration is. Now, they think the next iteration is a white ethno-state, and they can think whatever the hell they want because this is America. Accelerationists drive into overdrive to help establish a white ethno-state, FBI special agents. I infiltrated one, says Scott Payne. Again, nothing against Scott Payne. I don't know him personally. I won't take any hits against who he is or what he did or any of his career. I don't have a problem with people doing the work, except when that work involves trying to go out after a First Amendment protected activity. I do actually have a problem with that. He went after outlaw motorcycle gangs. I think they're lame. He apparently was infiltrating into some of these like Atomwaffen Division and other accelerationist groups that are white supremacy. He has a big talk on this stuff about what's called the base, quote unquote, the base, end quote. Okay, that's the name of the group. And the base is supposed to be these like neo-Nazi white supremacists. They were the big deal under Biden. They were the FBI's favorite thing. They're the reason why racially motivated violent extremists were the same category. They ran out of the base. There wasn't enough of them. That's why they ended up going after Catholics in Richmond, Virginia, and said that maybe these white supremacists would be able to convert over very devout and pre-Vatican II enthusiast Catholics who like Latin Mass. The base was one of them. What's wild is these stories, I had a little brush with them. We followed this guy. I followed the guy on the screen right now. This is an older story. This is coming from ABC as well. I've had about maybe 1/3 of our stories come from ABC today. Newly released FBI tapes show a white supremacist member of the base plotting terrorist attacks. This is from November of 2021. That's when the FBI started putting some of this stuff out. He had a plot for mass murder fueled by racist hate. His name was Patrick Jordan Matthews. I was on the arrest operation for Patrick Jordan Matthews. It was in Maryland, Virginia. He is a former Canadian Army reservist, illegally snuck into the United States, was being told by the public ran all these stories. We had to go find them, but they were telling the public that no one knew where he was. We knew where he was the whole time. The FBI tracked his movements the entire time, from the time he slipped over the border in Canada all the way down to Atlanta, watched him in Atlanta, drove him up while he was driving up from Atlanta. There was a surveillance team on him the entire way. And then my team took over at the border of Virginia, and then we followed him all the way up to Maryland. Then we handed him off to the Baltimore surveillance team, and they bedded him down. And then like a day or two later, I joined the Washington Field SWAT team as a medic, and we rolled in and we pulled these people out of that thing. I still remember driving up that long driveway. I remember that his house was like, it was in the kind of a woody area. He was sleeping in the garage apartment above his grandma's house. It was a white house with a window that I remember seeing one of our snipers sitting there and throwing lasers on it. It was a pretty memorable arrest in so much as we had to drive a long way to go do it. We were out in the middle of freaking nowhere, too. I remember that as well. On the way back, we got lost out in the middle of the boonies in Maryland. Patrick Matthews, illegal in the United States. Brian Lemmy, a Maryland resident and self-described white nationalist, fantasized about the brutal murders that they would carry out soon against law enforcement and black people with the goal of bringing about the Boogaloo. The Boogaloo is like the next Civil War, or the collapse of the United States federal government in order to prop up the white ethno-state, according to recordings, because they were infiltrating this. Because these guys ever really do anything that much? No. Did they get arrested like a bunch of little puppies? Yeah, they did. They said, if you see a bunch of blacks sitting on the corner, you effing shoot them. They never did that thing. They just said those things. So, I mean, these were awful people. No question about it. But to act like this was the number one threat, which is what the Biden administration told us the entire time that I was serving under the Biden administration. So 2021 on, we were hearing about it. And it turns out Chris Wray was actually floating that BS all the way through Donald Trump's first term as well. One of the first things I said in the first interview that I did, when I sat down with Dan Bongino, I told him explicitly, and I've said this to people at the Washington Times and others, that the demand for white supremacy vastly outstrips the supply for white supremacy, which is why they pumped up this guy. Why would you release a picture of a guy wearing a gas mask? Do you know how ineffective and stupid that looks? He's in a room taking a picture of himself trying on his gear. I got a freaking gas mask sitting on the table just outside of my studio here. So what? I got a bump helmet to go along with it too, with a GoPro on it. Ooh, I got more guns than any of these guys had. All their guns combined is less than the guns in this house right now. But the base sounds really scary. The base. The two men were arrested in January of 2020. It was one of the last things I did, or one of the first things I did in 2020 before the COVID stuff went down. Days before a Richmond rally was supposed to take place, they found tactical gear, 1,500 rounds of ammunition, and packed food and supplies in their residence. People, if you're not a gun person and someone tells you that the bad guy had 1,500 rounds, I don't buy less than 1,500 rounds at a time anymore. I probably have more than 10,000 rounds of 22 LR right now. And I guarantee you that if they raided my house, they would be like, 50,000 rounds of ammunition. Somebody might actually be like, oh, that guy was actually getting ready. He was actually preparing. I have buckets that have more than 1,000 rounds at a time, and I have pallets of these buckets on purpose. Why would you do that? Oh, because you might like to shoot. And it turns out in America, we actually have that right. It's the Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms. If you want to bear them, you actually have to be able to use them. They're supposed to promote our general welfare. They're supposed to actually allow us to ensure domestic tranquility. One of those things is that we are prepared to make sure that someone doesn't come in and disrupt the domestic tranquility. Part of ensuring domestic tranquility is that Americans have the ability to defend themselves. They don't wait for the federal government because the federal government doesn't have a police force. Read the Constitution, folks. This guy goes on to talk about how he worked for 23 years and he worked on outlaw motorcycle gangs and cartels and neo-Nazi groups. And so there's a couple of different things. And you guys shared his story. And it sounds interesting. It does. I mean, it's an interesting story. Undercover work is always quite interesting. But some of this stuff seems like inherently First Amendment protected. And I've always had a real issue with going after, simply saying that someone is a white supremacist is not justification for an FBI investigation into them. They're really, really keen on this on the left. They want to point out that white supremacists are really bad speakers. What about people that do things actually illegally that they are defending, right? It's legal to be a white supremacist. It's not legal to come to our country illegally. And this is where I continue to see this sort of kayfabe, this sort of fakeness. We're seeing the left now, in violation of our Constitution, claim that they will use any lever possible to defend their positions, regardless of how legal it is, how logical it is, how much it makes any bit of sense whatsoever. I knew we were going to get some knob slobbery, so I've got some from Kash Patel. The concern is this story right here, okay? The concern is the governor of Illinois, and a lot of this stuff comes out of Illinois, has signed an executive order that he wants to document the so-called unlawful acts of federal agents doing ICE enforcement. The only problem is that they are not unlawful acts because of that supremacy clause that we started off with. So let's get to the knob slobbery and the Kash Patel question on Laura Ingraham. If you guys want to ever go on Fox News, just remember, they're going to tell you what they want to talk about. Then you have to agree that you're going to talk about it unless you're a government official and they are toadying up to you to maintain access. Then you can come on and you can spit your own talking points, which is what's going on right here. I only say that because I've been on Fox News a number of times. Here it is. I've been on with Laura.
Governor Pritzker and others are creating these apps and databases to track ICE agents. Is there any movement in the administration to pursue, prosecution or charges against individuals who are impeding law enforcement to that capacity?
Hey, Laura, it's great to be with you. And absolutely. And because of the power of President Trump and the team that he has built, not just in the public sector, in the government sector, but the private sector, he and our attorney general have been able to go to these application companies and have these apps actually deleted and permanently removed. That's the immediate solution. But if these people continue to endanger the lives of law enforcement, you bet this FBI is going to chase every single one of them down. No one is allowed to touch a cop on my watch, and no one's going to touch a cop on our watch. And on the off chance that they they do or participate in a scheme via an app or otherwise that does so, they will find themselves in handcuffs, just like so many of those that have tried to hurt law enforcement in the past. But now law enforcement is so well respected thanks to President Trump's leadership and the establishment of this Homeland Security Task Force. The American people are seeing what cops can do when you let them be cops.
Blah. He couldn't help himself, could he? Cops being cops. ICE are not cops. Federal agents are not cops. It's so flippin' silly and embarrassing. Cops work for localities. That's not what we have. That's not what the Supremacy. They are federal agents, which is a really big difference, it turns out. Donald Trump is making this thing happen. Yeah, somebody said we should make a drinking game out of this. We certainly could. All right, what is he talking about? He's talking about people in Illinois at the governor's mansion, people in the Secretary of State office saying things that are nuts. I want to show you something I saw yesterday, and I'm going to go ahead and help you understand why the Supremacy Clause is going to debunk this. Regardless of what Grok or AI has to tell you, I'm correct in this one. I know because I lived it. I lived it in the seat of federal government. I lived it in multiple jurisdictions. I have violated the thing that this guy is upset about in New Mexico, in Texas, in Alaska. I'm trying to get a good count here. In Oregon, in Washington State, in Pennsylvania, in Florida, in North Carolina and South Carolina, in Virginia, in Maryland. You guys get the idea. In Washington, D.C. itself. This is a really little interesting take that this guy is going to go out there. This is the Secretary of State in Illinois claiming that he's going to now track down federal agents for violating state laws. Ready? Check this out.
You may have seen this video recently on social media. It shows an ICE agent confronting someone filming a vehicle and saying,
you can record all you want. I change plates out every day.
Well, I have a big problem with that. You see, swapping out Illinois license plates on Illinois registered vehicles is illegal. And as Secretary of State, I have zero tolerance for this type of illegal activity. We are investigating these allegations as we speak, and I'm asking for your help. Today, we're announcing a special Plate Watch hotline for people to report this type of illegal activity. You can call 312-814-1730 or email platewatch@ilsos.gov. Flipping license plates or altering them in any way to avoid detection is strictly prohibited in Illinois. Penalties include fines and potential jail time. Our office also has the authority to suspend or revoke the vehicle's license plates. And no one, including a federal agent, is above the law. So if you see this occurring anywhere, call or email our hotline so that we can keep our communities safe.
What does that mean, keep our communities safe? That's interesting. So his name is Alexei Ginoulas. I don't know how to say his name. It's Giannoulias. It's one of those Greek names that I can't pronounce. Sorry about that. What I do know is that Julie Kelly gave $6,000 to his reelection campaign in 2022. Did you guys know that? $6,000 hard money donation, Julie Kelly, to that guy. You remember Julie Kelly, the hero of J6, the defender of federal law enforcement after our guys got in charge, but not before? Okay, let's just help this out. If you flip federal license plates and you are in pursuit of your federal duty, then you are not in violation of any law. Why would that be, Kyle? Oh, because there actually are statutory allowances for you to do the thing that you got to do. There are federal policies that supersede whatever this guy says. I have changed license plates. I have carried a gun in every jurisdiction, not with state status. Most times, most states do not honor or acknowledge federal agents as peace officers, and therefore you would have to get a permit, except you don't, because you're a federal agent and you don't have to listen to them. I'm not defending the federal government. I'm just telling you the reality on the ground is you can change license plates or not change license plates or not have license plates at all. I used to drive through Virginia occasionally and I would take my license plates off and I'd drive without them. And they would come in behind me, state police, and they'd turn on their lights and they'd try to pull me over. And I didn't pull over. You know what they did? They got confused. Is it funny? It's kind of funny. It's kind of the dream of every single person that's never wanted to pull over when you weren't doing something illegal. They don't know what to do. They're like, wait, when I turn on the flashy things, then the other guy goes and pulls over. I just didn't pull over. I just kept driving the way that I do. And eventually, if I could find a way when I wasn't behind a subject that I was following that was involved in a terror case or, gambling for the NBA or whatever the hell else we were doing, and I would flip on my rear lights and I'd try and show them like, hey, I'm a law enforcement vehicle. But I didn't stop because I was doing my job and they had no authority to stop me because the Supremacy Clause. Under the authority of the United States shall be the supreme law of the land. That's it. Anything in the Constitution or laws of any state to the contrary, notwithstanding, doesn't matter. The Supremacy Clause has been widely interpreted to say that you can do the things you can do, to the point where if you're scoped on duty, you could actually kill somebody and not be liable for it. Even if it was your own fault, but you were pursuing your duty in honest and in good faith. I love you guys on the chat. You guys are like, you could have been shot. No, I wasn't going to be shot. In fact, the funniest thing that happened, my buddy Mike, who's no longer my buddy, but he was my buddy when I came out of the academy. Whenever we first got our badges and our guns, the first thing they did, they gave us the guns. We tucked them into our holsters. We stepped outside of the firearms facility at Quantico, and he looked over at me and he goes, we've waited so long to be above the law. And we both just burst out laughing because it's really funny. Except there is kind of an attitude like that. And you can see why these people are upset. And you can understand, but they are more than happy to use the federal government when they can. They're happy to lean on the state government when possible. They're also willing to, quote unquote, fight, even though this is well within the authority of the various different federal agencies. And this stuff is going on. This is a senator asking Linda McMahon to stop DHS. So she's asking the Department of Education to stop the Department of Homeland Security from doing what DHS does with an authority that doesn't exist at the Department of Education. That's Tammy Duckworth right there, sitting in her chair. And she's demanding that the one federal department stop the other federal department from doing the job of that federal department. What is all this stuff going on about? How does it work? Well, it works like this. There are people who are directly attempting at the state level and now also at the federal level, just through talking. This is just me fighting for you, chip in $5 kind of deal. But you've had people that are congressmen that are now, they're going to go after the state authorities. Again, they don't care what lever of power they pull on as long as they can pull on your heartstrings and act like it. They're suddenly states' rights guys. Here's Robert Garcia, Democrat representative out of California. And he's going to work with the governor and the mayor of a state that is subservient in the immigration world to be able to track these people. They are making it more dangerous for feds doing the job that we actually think they should do. They don't care anything about whose power, what's authorized, any principles whatsoever. Here is in a couple of little videos from this one.
I shared this with the mayor. Over the course of the next couple of weeks, the Oversight Committee will be launching on their website a master ICE tracker where we're going to be essentially tracking every single instance that we can verify that the community will be able to send us information on. I shared this with the mayor. Over the course of the next couple of weeks, the Oversight Committee will be launching on their website a master ICE tracker.
A master ICE tracker that the federal government's going to do from Congress? Really? That's not going to be a problem. I'm sure we can't have any issues with that. This is an ongoing push, though. We're seeing members of the federal Congress, right? The national organization that's supposed to make laws. And rather than make laws, because they can't, and rather than actually do the work that they're supposed to do, which they won't want to do, they go and they make speeches about how they're going to get the state to go after it. Pretty wild. This is a representative. Let me double check his name real quick. His name is Chuy Garcia, and he is in Illinois. And he's also upset that ICE is doing the job that ICE is supposed to do. I don't know why.
Cowardly. That's why you cover your face. Cowardly. That's why you cover your name. Because you're not proud to serve, because you're not serving anyone except the evil forces that seek to oppress us, to drive us into the shadows of society, and to make us silent. But we're not silent. We're here and we are morally defiant because we're on the right side of history. That's right. And of this cause.
Okay, this is where the Podesta plan kicks in. This is where that false flag, first you got to inflame passions, and they're doing it. And so the stuff that Alex Jones has been talking about for quite a while, he's not wrong. He's not wrong that this could be a thing that gets on. You only need an inciting incident. Here's another good one. This is a very emotional trigger, although we just ignore the complete underlying issues here. ICE arrests Chicago man whose teenage daughter is fighting cancer. He belongs with her, they say. Okay, we're going to read the story. Let's get emotional about this. Please engage your emotions. Chicago Tribune. Ophelia Torres has spent almost every day in the past month at the Something Children's Hospital where a 16-year-old Lakeview high school student is fighting cancer. After a tough few weeks, the disease spread through her body And the doctors inserted a drain to relieve her abdomen. All of that's really sad. Nobody's excited about it. Well, what's really going on here? Oh, the story is that this is a sympathetic situation, and her dad, who came to the United States illegally, has been doing things illegally and was trying to work illegally in violation of both our civil and our criminal laws, was arrested by ICE. And that is the real problem. We cannot have this thing. How dare they do their job?
Look, they're going to continue to try to make up excuses for what they're doing, but what they're doing is unconscionable. They're not going after criminals. They're going after fathers who have spent their life in this country, making this country better. It's unconscionable what you're saying, and I really believe that justice will be served. I'm hopeful for that as we continue to defend this family and so many who are under siege by these terrible ICE operations.
A father that was picked up just while going to a Home Depot, is that correct?
That is correct. A father who was doing side jobs, including going to Home Depot to be able to go do the work that he's doing so he can pay for the care that his daughter needs with stage 4 cancer.
The daughter has stage 4 cancer. He's trying to save some money up, and that's why he was, let's just change it. Let's say he was doing something else illegal. He was just dealing drugs. He was just selling child pornography because he was trying to help his children. Are they equivalent? No. Is there a pretty close fact that you are breaking the law, that you are doing something illegal, and then you just had consequences for it? How about Republicans stand up and say, yeah, that's fine. We're okay with that. The issue is that some of these people out there making these arguments, they forget that maybe there's that guy, and he's an exception. He's certainly an exception. And then there's maybe this guy, who also might be an exception. But we can weigh your exception with the same exceptions. There are plenty of people that have done bad things that came here because they've already shown a propensity to not follow our laws. You came in illegally, and now you're going to work illegally. You're going to take jobs that you're not allowed to have. You're going to accept money that you're not allowed to have. That means you're probably doing identity theft if you're working a regular job. That's a felony every single time you do it. And it's not a victimless crime. Or maybe you're involved like this. This is also in Chicago.
A sexual assault on Chicago's Northwest Side will remain in jail while he awaits trial.
And the details coming to light weeks after the violent attack. WGN's Courtney Spinelli is near Black Hawk Park in the Belmont-Cragen neighborhood, where investigators say the assault happened.
This attack was believed to be random. The 54-year-old victim walking home when she was allegedly grabbed by the 21-year-old suspect who ran out of this park.
It makes me feel really scary because I walk in the morning by myself.
Some concerned residents now learning of a violent attack on August 31st. Prosecutors say it happened at the hands of this man, 21-year-old Later Araz Medina, just before 3 in the morning. According to court documents, Araz Medina first pulled the woman to the ground by her hair before forcing her up and across the street. Private surveillance video picked up the sounds of her screams. The suspect allegedly forced her into an alleyway off Laverne, threw her to the ground, and undressed her before dragging her further. That was caught on pod cameras, investigators say. The suspect then strangled her and grabbed her by the hair, slamming her head into the concrete repeatedly, according to a court proffer. The victim told detectives she lost consciousness, but when she came to, tried to fight off the suspect, who again slammed her to the ground and continued his sexual assault. The suspect was spooked and ran when a car approached.
To walk out of your house and not feel safe around your neighborhood it's terrible, honestly.
Prosecutors say it was workers at a nearby food truck that were able to help the woman and call 911. Staff at LS Teca say they were about done for the night when the woman ran into the truck, one worker still inside there. They say she was frantic and explaining what happened. Another worker was able to...
Yeah, but we need to stop the unlawful attacks by federal agents going after scumbags. Is everybody a scumbag? Probably not. Are you going to get some of them? Sure. Do they have any right to be here? No. Are we going to see an emotional reaction on the left that's going to cause people to eventually provoke a conflict with our federal agents? I think that's pretty high probability. And so when Alex Jones talks about the PODESTA plan, which is to say essentially get people inflamed, emotional, do stories about a father just trying to support his daughter with stage 4 cancer and trying to get a job illegally at Home Depot, and they're bad. And if you see ICE agents that are flipping their plates, are you outraged? Do these people care about other laws in the state? No, they do not. What they're going to do is get people really amped up because they found a bad boogeyman. In the same way that people on the right are really, really upset about Antifa, which, by the way, I've been surrounded by people from Antifa. I'm not a big fan. But just to assume that everybody who has an idea or everybody who has a First Amendment protected liberty. Like people in Antifa, they have a right to have Antifa ideas, just like white supremacists do, just like neo-Nazis do. They all have that right, it turns out, under the First Amendment. They can't do anything about it that's physical or kinetic, but they can have those thoughts. And they can go to a protest as long as they don't get violent and break the law. We should have principles. We don't have that. We don't have people that are running our country that have those principles. The Podesta plan is going to get people emotionally stirred up, and then they're going to take actions. And those actions will look like this, and eventually somebody will be shot and killed. And that person will be lionized, and we'll get another George Floyd scenario, which was a pretty imperfect. You'll get a much more sympathetic person. It's going to be a mainstream white mom who just got so incensed that she had to go out there and stop ICE agents, and that's why she rammed her Suburban with kids in it. She's going to get shot in front of her kids because she rammed some ICE agents. These stories are getting more prominent, and it's going to be the emotional strings that turn, and you're going to find that it's going to be either women or feminized men that are going to be the ones who act. That's my prediction. I'm saying that as my prediction. Here's an example.
Cicero police now confirms a driver of a blue pickup truck was allegedly attempting to hit a DHS vehicle at that intersection. Police say the driver of the blue truck tried speeding off from the area when it hit a Toyota sedan that was crossing through the intersection. Federal agents could be seen helping the woman who was driving that sedan, and they took the driver of the blue pickup truck into custody. 25th Ward Alderman Byron Sigjo Lopez was nearby as ICE operations unfolded in Little Village today.
26 and Christiana, they crash and leave it in the middle of the street, chase somebody out of the vehicle. They keep doing that. They detain someone right here in outside of businesses. I think there are at least 2 people.
I'm continually uncomfortable by people who have thick accents and did not come from this country being in charge, even at the state or city level. It really does bother me. I don't know whether that's fair or not. I know they're representing people that are naturalized citizens and so on, but also they're representing some ethos that's not here. It's the same problem I have with the State Department, where people from the State Department were not American by birth, and they came here, and then they represent American interests to their own home countries where they come from. I find that really problematic. It's not specifically bigoted. It's just a concern that it's like, where are your loyalties? And I don't know how to prove it. I've met people that are from other countries that are truly loyal to the United States. It's obviously a real thing. But none of them seem to have accents like that. So I don't know if that's an affectation, the way that we see like Ilhan Omar, who can turn it on and turn it off, or whether that's just that the way that they speak and they never learn how to speak English in an accent. Maybe they came here too late. I can't test what's in people's hearts, but it does make me ask a lot of questions more than I feel comfortable with. And this guy, Chuy Garcia, he just told you exactly what's going to go on. He said that we are on the morally correct side of this thing, that we, people that are on the left right now, they have a moral correct position. That means that the other side is being immoral. And that is a motivation to act. And that's why you're going to see people do rammings. That's why this is going to be a problem. So as we go into this weekend, we're going to remember, when you start playing on people's heartstrings, when you start doing these emotional appeals, which the left is totally keen on. They destroyed the people's house at the White House. How dare they? They're doing illegal attacks. They're breaking the law. They're not using license plates. Do you know how many drug dealers don't use license plates or flip license plates? Are you guys going after all of them? You're going to go after freaking ICE agents who actually are allowed to do that under the Supremacy Clause? Give me a freaking break. But they are going to whip up the heartstrings, and people are simple-minded enough that they will actually react. And then you're going to get somebody rammed, somebody's going to get shot, somebody's going to try to interfere with somebody getting arrested that has nothing to do with it. They're going to get shot because they're going to pull a weapon, or they're going to look like they're pulling a weapon, and it's going to be a justifiable shooting. And then you're going to have open revolt of the emotional, foolish people who are so easily manipulated. The key is to not be that person, to not be easily emotionally manipulated, to be skeptical and just go, well, what are they trying to pull on me here? Many of us have seen that. A lot of people that are now on the right have that skepticism about all kinds of institutions. Don't be afraid to continue that, especially the people that are trying to pull on your emotions from the right. That's going to be your podcast. That's going to be your news. That's going to be your radio. That's going to be all the things. They're playing the same exact tools that the left is. But I can show you real clearly what the left is doing, and it's going to result in some violence. Here's another look at that guy, Chuy Garcia. Yeah, remember, he's a congressman.
Cowardly. That's why you cover your face. Cowardly. That's why you cover your name. Because you're not proud to serve, because you're not serving anyone except the evil forces that seek to oppress us, to drive us into the shadows of society, and to make us silent. But we're not silent. We're here, and we are morally defiant because we're on the right side of history.
That's right.
You're on the right side of history. He was born in Mexico. He's from Mexico. He's not young. I'm just saying, I don't like this kind of talk. It gets people amped up and it gets them into a real dangerous spot. And if you think that we're safe simply because our FBI is in charge right now we're going after gambling and we're going to go after the bad guys and we're going to do things like, I don't know, go after Antifa, which you heard. I want to tell you the danger of the quote unquote our FBI, even our federal law enforcement in general. If you think ICE would not turn around and be the welcoming committee for illegals at the next election, I'm going to remind you that you are sorely mistaken. And I'm going to do so by playing you this Ring camera footage. You guys are already going to see this and you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about. This is Ring camera footage that was posted by Ken Klippenstein. He's one of the independent journalists that I follow over on X. He and I have had some back and forth conversations. I think we hold similar concerns about an FBI that does not and will not have principle. The reason I brought up the white supremacy game is because that's what they went after previously. And we all said, well, that's BS. First of all, there's not that much white supremacy. And second of all, they have a right to be white supremacists in America, even if we don't want to associate with them. They really do. You're allowed to do that thing. So people of principles will not be deceived by that. But your average MAGA person that's really excited and just says whatever Donald Trump's opinion is good for me, whatever Josh Hawley says, that's good enough for me. They were doing some terrible things that they were legally allowed to do, it turns out. The FBI can also still legally do this. There's no criminal predicate involved in this interview. You're going to see two FBI agents who do not identify themselves by last name, who knock on a door on Ring Cam, and they tell a guy that you need to come and talk to us, and they spent an hour. I'll watch the video first with you, and then I'm going to read the article about the stuff that they said, and all of this stuff is very chilling to the First Amendment liberties you have. This guy should have known ABCD. He should be a Kyle Seraphin Show listener, obviously. Let's go ahead and listen to the video. It's about 60 seconds.
Oh, I forgot what these things. They keep talking there. Hey, my name's James. I'm James Keefe. I'm with the FBI.
Hey, Miles. Nice to meet you, brother. Good. How you doing?
We came out here to ask you questions regarding a protest that happened on the 11th of June.
Protest.
On the 11th?
Yeah.
What protest?
There's a protest out by the country club in Valencia area. And we've been just basically going around asking questions for a few people that were brought up, and your name was brought up. So
okay.
Let's see if you had a couple minutes to answer some questions regarding the protest that happened.
We were going around asking questions, and your name came up. You guys remember my favorite? Your name came across my desk. Why did my name come across your desk? These people, this is not a sophisticated person who's doing a counter interview. Why did my name come across your desk, man? Why are you here? What are we doing here? What has caused you to be at my door? It was a protest? Is there any allegation that or information that I was involved in criminal activity? Maybe you should talk to my lawyer. None of this stuff needs to be done, by the way. It's like, hey, I'm Keith. That's James. We're here from the FBI. Oh, congratulations. Have a nice day. Close the door. Feel free to leave a business card on the doorstep. Adios, homie. We're going to continue. There's another 20 seconds.
Yeah, who are you with?
I'm with the FBI. My name's
Okay.
James.
My name's James. What's your last name, James?
Okay.
Special
So I
agent
just
what?
want to know if you have a few minutes to chat.
Yeah.
So that's about the protest.
No, I don't
Inside?
have a few
Yeah,
minutes
we're
to chat.
good. Go ahead. Yeah.
He's about to invite them in.
I got roommates. Can we do it out?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're not
Oh,
trying
yeah. We'll totally talk to you wherever. And that's it. That's how not to handle a knock and talk by the FBI. They ended up speaking to this man for about an hour, per his own statements. They came out to ask questions about a protest that happened on the 11th of July. Your name was brought up. No criminality alleged. Again, I would not even get that far with this question, but let's continue on. He said that he attended the anti-ICE protest in June so he could express his opposition to the deportations. That is a constitutionally protected position to hold. If you guys think that the guy that was knocking there would not also be knocking on a pro-life Catholic store, would not also be knocking on, I don't know, like a MAGA person's door for January 6th, we heard that you might have been at a MAGA rally. You might have been at a Donald Trump rally. And we'd just like to ask you some questions. What was this all about? The protest involved an estimated 300 people that gathered near the ICE field office in Valencia and South Country Club. This is in Tucson. This is the Phoenix office, the Tucson resident agency where those agents are out of. I might be finding out more. The crowd gathered. A group of protesters began throwing objects, including rocks, paintballs, fireworks, and smoke devices. Those are federal crimes, most likely, so don't do that. The guards responded with crowd control munitions. The windows of the ICE facility in the adjacent building were broken and spray painted with graffiti. A number of businesses nearby were boarded up. Should be pretty easy to figure out who's who. This guy was not charged. He was not told that he was a witness, and we are looking to find out what's going on. Under the domestic counterterrorism cases of the Trump administration, no crime needs to actually be committed for authorities to open an investigation. That's not unique to Donald Trump, folks. That's what's been going on. That is the entire purpose of this podcast, to let you know that threats and the attempt to mitigate extremism can be an indication of terrorism. That's what the FBI actually does. Josh Hawley's incorrect. He doesn't know what the FBI does, and yet he is the one who signs off on and pays for the federal government. I feel like our message is not getting out there, so please continue to share it. The Attorney General Pam Bondi cited this is a new priority they came up with, which is NSPM number 7, her own directive ordering the FBI and federal law enforcement to crack down on anti-ICE terrorism, not defined. Now, apparently people engage themselves in federal crimes at that particular protest, so be it. Come back with evidence. There is no upside to you talking about them. All they ended up doing was having an effect of chilling his speech because he said he won't be going to any more rallies. And that's not acceptable. Even though we don't necessarily like anti-ICE protesters, even though I'm not crazy about people who are Antifa, they have a right to say what they say as long as they don't engage in violence. And if they do engage in violence or assault on a federal officer, there should be consequences, but it should not be the FBI shows up at random people's houses that had nothing to do with the actual alleged criminal activity. The agents said that they knew he was at the No Kings rally, and all it accomplished was that he was spooked. It had the chilling effect on speech. He said, "It worked on me. I won't be going back out there again." Josh Hawley is got the same exact treatment and doesn't recognize that he and that man are in the same boat. And they would actually act like he would be 100% behind saying that these people are the problem. And you know it because you've heard them say it.
The records that they sought to track and trace and tap, the devices that they sought, are in the possession of senators pursuant to their constitutional duties. 2 U.S.C. Section 6628A specifically says that those records do not become the possession of cell phone companies. They don't become the possession of Verizon or AT&T or whomever. They are retained by the senator's office. Why? Because these devices are used pursuant to the speech and debate responsibilities of senators.
How about the First Amendment responsibilities that the federal government has to avoid being involved in deciding what is good and bad speech? Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or of the right of the people to peaceably to assemble, to petition the government for a redress of grievances. We have a First Amendment for a reason. Federal law enforcement does not care about that. We've seen it already. My former agency, they're not going to stop. They're going to do what they're told. A system is what it does. You'll know it by its fruits. Its fruits are, we'll knock on anybody's door as long as that's what we're told to do. Because these are the good Germans. These are the good Americans. These are the people that will just do what the mission is, and they won't ask the questions because they already got rid of all the people that ask the questions. And even the ones that are supposed to be back, like Steve Friend, not paid. How about the people like Garrett O'Boyle, not back paid? Shown up to work at a ridiculously stupid institution that continues to do the same problems. We will see the same sins under the next administration. We'll see the same sins under this administration, but we'll cheer it on. If you're foolish, if you're ignorant, if you don't realize, they're just playing you against themselves. What they're all doing is they're just doing what they've always done. Justify their purposes. It scares the hell out of me, people. It really does. That's what I got for today. I think I should have a palate cleanse in here. So let me just remind you, follow us over on Rumble. You can follow us on YouTube. You can follow us on X. You can follow us on any number of places and enjoy the program. Make sure you're liking it. Make sure you're sharing it. We would appreciate all of those things. I don't even know what. I've got a great little palate cleanse for you today. If you want to subscribe over on Locals, you can do the same thing. Let me give you a fun little thing about seeing through the BS and understanding what is and what is not reality. How about this little moment? Let me find it right here. Let's do a palate cleanse before we go into the weekend. This is kind of funny. Double standards. Isn't that what was the topic? Double standards? How about this double standard? This seems unfair.
If a guy removes his penis and puts a wig on and throws on a dress, everyone's like, you go girl, live your truth. But if a guy wears a toupee, everyone just laughs at him. And he's just trying to identify as someone with hair. But society's like, nah. We don't play that shit.
Dude is totally right. That might be one of the best observational humor pieces that I've seen in the last year. You can't even put off a toupee. They got mad at Donald Trump about that. You guys remember? It's not even his real hair. There was a whole bit about that during his first presidency. It's not even his real hair. Meanwhile, dude in a dress. That's a lady. Anyway, people are easily manipulated. Don't be one of those people. God bless you. Go out and see your neighbors. Enjoy your night here. I think we're going to try to do an Amy Nelson #2, the update. We're working our way to getting a new interview with her. So Sunday Sit Down will be a replay. If you don't know the story of Amy Nelson, you should check it out. It is truly atrocious. She is a person formerly on the left, now a post-partisan who despises federal government for all the reasons that we do as well. There is common ground to be gained. All these people need to do is find themselves on the wrong side of the government, and suddenly they're our allies. So don't write off your neighbors, any of them. Yeah, that's it. All right, God bless you. Have a great weekend. See you on the other side.
Thanks for listening to The Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram @Kyle Seraphin.